So welcome to episode 8 of Historians in Cars Getting Coffee, and we are now on our way to Oak Ridge National Laboratory. And before we get there, we're going to talk about what we have just seen. We've just been to visit a very impressive private collection of Civil War books and artifacts, and it was carefully explained to me that, contrary to my newfound theory, the Civil War was not really about rival potato salad recipes.
Slightly more complex.
So a bit of that complexity was here in the state, right? That the way the Civil War played out here was unusual in some ways.
That's right, especially here in East Tennessee, Richard, because East Tennessee, in part because of its geography, though there was slavery present here, by and large part, East Tennessee was pro-Union, and we explored that in the Museum of East Tennessee history the other day when we were there, and you can see the maps of how people voted to secede or not secede. East Tennessee was largely, I'm going to say, pro-Union, or at least not pro-secessionist. And so what I think is really interesting is that because it's a huge patchwork, like a quilt patchwork in East Tennessee of who was loyal to whom, it made for some really tense fighting, and it made for a really complex situation. So, for instance, this East Tennessee was very pro-abolition and doing away with slavery, again, part of the geology, because of resulting of geography. But one of the earliest, in fact, the earliest abolitionist newspaper in the United States was started in Jonesboro, Tennessee, in East Tennessee, because there was also a large population of Quakers here.
So, what we saw in the collection this morning, I mean, one of the things was striking was the little badges that people in secessionist states wore when the state had just seceded in order to celebrate. I mean, in a way, how divided were things here in the state? I mean, not only feelings running high, but people actually literally fighting with each other.
Well, yes, I mean, so in Tennessee, I mean, we saw a badge that was from Virginia that had been captured by a Union soldier, which was really remarkable, the story behind that. And then there was another badge from South Carolina, and the photograph of someone appearing in their uniform with the secession badge in it, which I thought was remarkable. Again, it's a remarkable collection. But in Tennessee, again, because it was so divided, now the founder of the East Tennessee Historical Society, Ramsey, he was deeply pro-secessionist, and we have a lot of his papers and so forth, but he had a vitriolic relationship with Parson Brownlow, who eventually became governor of Tennessee during Reconstruction, and they exchanged horrific letters to each other in the press leading up to the Civil War, referring to each other as vipers and so forth. Yeah. But East Tennessee, it was so divided that Knoxville, in many ways at the time, was one of the major cities, of course, of East Tennessee, and still is, had to be occupied by the Confederacy after Tennessee seceded, because they didn't trust that there was enough pro-Confederate people there to be a Confederate city. And then, of course, when the Union came through and took Knoxville over, it was then occupied by the Union because there was still a pretty strong group of Confederates here.
And another sort of artifact we saw, now I guess I was kind of dimly aware of this but hadn't really taken it on board, is that the Confederate flag that is, so politically controversial today is very familiar, from people who've seen Dukes of Hazzard and so on. Right. But actually, that was the battle flag, and the official flag of the Confederacy was really different.
Yeah, completely different. I mean, typically the Confederate flag, the flag of the Confederacy, although there were several, and it was almost different per state, because it was a loose confederation of states, obviously, but the one in particular was a sort of red and white stripe, and then a kind of blue box with a circle of stars. It looks almost like the European Union flag, but with a red and white stripe, which was the actual flag of the Confederacy. The Confederate battle flag is what appears, and is quite controversial and has shown up, of course, which is colloquially known as the Stars and Bars. There was another prominent Confederate flag referred to as the Bonnie Blue flag, which was a blue field and one white star. So the flags of the Confederacy is in of itself a quite fascinating topic, because it was so different and again just so based on either the states or sometimes the counties. There's a one that we have at the East Tennessee Historical Society. Well, we don't have it now. It's with the Virginia Historical Society. But the flag of the Granger County Rifles, which is a Confederate group, I grew up in Granger County, had a completely different flag that didn't look like either of them. And on the flag, it said, "Our might makes right," which I thought was pretty remarkable. But
yeah, I mean, I guess another thing which impressed me, and I've seen this in sort of other places in the United States, looking at sort of mid 19th century stuff before, but it's kind of the technology and I suppose the combination of mass-produced stuff. And I don't know, we were looking at revolvers and so on.
yes,
But also with swords which were engraved with incredibly intricate messages, which were obviously done on a sort of individual basis.
yeah. I mean, I was really impressed with the collection of swords, and the engravings themselves are really spectacular. I mean, done by master swordsmen, and one of them, I think if you recall, was actually made in France
Yeah.
and was shipped over. And I believe it was a Confederate sword. But I mean, it was just the most remarkable collection and a huge library of books and regimental histories. And those are so complex to try to get a hold of now. So I mean, I feel really honored that we got to see that.
And so we had a fascinating morning. We've had a very nice southern lunch, and we're going to be seeing you again when we get to Oak Ridge.